landscape, but it's COVID which has stopped us. Karuna ji, very good morning. How are you?
अभी तक तो ठीक है, आगे भगवान ही जाने. Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Landscape,
but COVID. Thank you so much. Actually, it's Earth Day Network which is spearheading this whole movement.
Very good morning.
And we are lucky
Good
to
morning.
join. Very
Good
good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Nice
morning,
to
sir.
see you all, and
Good morning,
nice
ma'am.
to see. Good morning, and nice
Very
to
good
have
morning.
excellent organizations with us, all with the same mission of doing something for Earth Day. And as you know, environmental literacy, climate literacy in particular, is of such importance. So thank you very much in advance, let me say, to both Climate Reality and Mobiles Foundation and all the participants who are coming together today for this. Thank you so much.
Great.
My computer is taking a little time to open, and that's why I opened it on my phone, but I'm trying to launch. The computer is also feeling hot. It's so hot in Calcutta.
It's hotting everywhere.
Yeah.
Good. Otherwise, the situation is really bad all over the country now. It's a
Very bad.
very bad situation.
I know. I mean, there was discussion. I had to have my second shot. That should I delay it or wait? And so then I've had mine 6 weeks later. I went day before yesterday and had it. I said, before they run out of more vaccine.
No, there will be many more vaccines coming up.
But who knows? And Calcutta is in a bad way because we have elections here, no?
Oh, yes.
Everything is in a mess. And who
Yeah,
knows?
but in election-bound areas, COVID is very scared to go there. So you are safe in the safe zone.
I don't think so. I mean, it's just that they're not testing, maybe, you know?
Yes, all the politicians, they are, I think, they have made it possible for Corona not to enter, including our Prime Minister.
So this is the guidelines from the Election Commission.
Okay.
The Corona should not enter.
Yeah, what to
So
do?
Dr. Nakula, you can hear me?
Yes. Namaste, sir.
नमस्ते. कैसा है नेपाल में?
जी,
कोरोना
अभी तक तो ठीक ठाक ही है. Comparatively, a little bit better than Delhi and some other places.
Oh, nice.
Okay, yeah, good. So vaccination has started there.
Yeah, there are two sets of vaccines that came, and the first one was from India, and then the second one is from China.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the first dose is done by many people, including our staff at Isimot. And we are now waiting for the second doses.
Okay, so you have taken or not?
Yeah, the first dose that was administered was from India, and at that time I was on travel.
Okay.
The second time when there is a provision, then that was from China, but still we took the Chinese one.
Okay.
So now we are waiting for the second dose.
Okay, so I think all vaccines are fine. In fact,
yeah,
there is no issue with the vaccines. Of course, this Covishield has some issues but that is 1 in 200,000 means there have been cases of blood clots. So that's being. But there have been no reports of blood clot among the people above 45 years of age. That is surprising. It is affecting only young.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Yes, we are just 1 minute to begin.
Dr. Good, so good morning, everyone, and very warm welcome to the first day of Climate Literacy Conclave for South Asia. We know education is essential element of the global response to climate change. It helps people understand and address the impact of global warming, increases climate literacy among young people, encourages changes in their attitudes and behavior. Therefore, to strengthen the climate actions and solutions on the ground and to celebrate the Earth Day month, we are bringing 2 days conclave to you focused on climate literacy in South Asia. And to formally start the webinar, it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Rambhuj, CEO of Mobius Foundation, to deliver welcome address and moderate the session, today's session. Over to you, Dr. Rambhuj.
Thank you, Sheetal, and a very warm welcome to all my friends from all over the country, India as well as South Asia. This is a very, very important day for all of us today. Of course, this South Asian Climate Literacy Conclave is being organized by Mobius Foundation, Climate Reality Project, and Earth Day Network. In build up to the Earth Day, that is to April 22nd, we are going to mark 51st anniversary this year. And in fact, 51 year back when Earth Day movement started, it was called as an environmental revolution. And in fact, it started with this one American senator, Gaylord Nelson, and he started a teaching about environmentalism. That was the topic, the whole Earth Day movement. And some 20 million people from thousands of schools, colleges, universities, and communities all over US were galvanized to action. This was unprecedented, and a lot of environmental activities and legislations followed: Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act, and creation of Environment Protection Agency in the US started. That was followed by globally. And in fact, last year, we all celebrated the Golden Jubilee, the 50th year of Earth Day. And climate action was the topic, but this year I think this is very apt that we have taken climate literacy, which is very, very important. And this is going to be as if in the follow-up to President Biden's climate summit that he is organizing on Earth Day. And we hope that a lot of action will happen. The first day, this whole conclave is for 2 days. First day is all about we will be addressing policymakers, and the second day will be totally devoted to youth. In fact, we heard yesterday there was news about, of course, both U.S. Environment, climate change envoy, as well as the French foreign environment minister were in India, and they were trying to advocate climate neutrality by 2050, and they perhaps discussed with Indian authorities also about climate neutrality by become carbon neutral by 2050. And that's a very tough task for many countries. In fact, 2015 Paris Agreement, lot of actions are being taken, and India says that we are walking the talk, and we are walking much ahead of many countries. Particularly, India is have taken advanced action on climate action among G20 countries, and hopefully, Indian policymakers will also adopt carbon neutrality by 2050. That is the goal. But the main issue here is about the climate education and awareness. That's literacy. And no country so far, very few countries have included in their climate goals the task of climate literacy. The NDCs, which every country has to submit to United Nations UNFCCC, that is the commitment. Hopefully, the next round of commitments, when it comes, at least climate education becomes part and parcel of that, because without that, I think action is not possible. So we are very, very happy that we have a galaxy of experts amongst us. I am very happy. I hope all our panelists are ready. And without taking much of the time, because we have a very, very, very packed program today, with very warm welcome to all of you, those who are viewing on the Zoom platform, as well as on Facebook and YouTube, as well as all those who are with us, the experts, panelists, and all the dignitaries. Very warm welcome. And we go ahead with the, I think I would invite the Mr. Aditya Pundir, the South Asia Director, Climate Reality Project India, for his opening remarks. In fact, Aditya is a very good friend of mine, and in fact, I would say that in India and South Asia, he is a torchbearer for environmental action, particularly environmental literacy. We have been working together for more than 2 decades, and his passion and commitment to this cause and is tremendous. He is heading the US this Nobel laureate Al Gore's Climate Reality Project in South Asia, and have taken many projects along with I think over 1,000 climate leaders spread all across the globe. Over to you, Mr. Aditya Pundir.
You're muted.
What happened?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I hope I'm. Yeah. Thank you very much, sir, for the warm introduction. And it's indeed a pleasure for me today to be part of this function today, where we are celebrating the coming of Earth Day. The Earth Day definitely reminds us every year that all is not well. And so I think with the same thing, with the same spirit that something has to be done about it, we thought of organizing this particular event. Well, as opening the session, while we have so many good people today who are experts in their field about climate literacy, they will have a lot to share. So probably I will take this time of 5 to 10 minutes I've been given to probably orient that why are we meeting today for this climate literacy event. Well, as all of my friends would be knowing that this February, we started with a bang. On 7th of February, we had this huge climate event in Chamoli when we had the glacier burst and there was a massive event. And I think the whole of North India also remembers that this time the February was extremely hot. It was 32 degrees. Throwing back last year, 2020, it was again at massive floods all over the country. Country lost more than $15 billion in floods. There were floods in the month of way back in early monsoon when there are no floods. In Assam, we had floods in Sikkim. We had problems in Bhutan. We had that it was a quite widespread floods all over the South Asia region. And it was followed by an epic flood in Hyderabad in October. So, and this all was happening while the country was facing the wrath of COVID on one side, and the COVID is still here. So what we are seeing is that the challenge of climate change is intensifying with every year. And we have just seen the first phase of, you can see, a pandemic and how it is mixing with climate change. And I think with coming time, the climate change pressures, the climate change challenges are going to multiply. So the biggest challenge we face today is what to do about it and how do we move fast enough so that we can move out of the harm's way. Just to put in the context of the people who in the seminar today, well, as per Dr. Rambhuj rightly said that 2050, everybody wants to be carbon neutrality is there. Everybody wants to be net zero. Well, as per the target is that to reach there, by 2030, we have to achieve certain things because 2050 will not magically happen one fine morning because currently the situation is very bad. The emissions are still increasing by 1% every year. It is about 52 billion is what we did last year. And by the time 2030 happens, if nothing changes, it will be 57 to 58 billion tons. While what is desired to reach 1.5 degree is 25 billion tons. So there's a shortfall of 32 billion ton, which we have to cut in the next 20 years. Now, this is a massive task. Literally, you have to reduce your emission by 7% every year. While what is happening today is we are still increasing it by 1% every year. So this is the challenge which we all are facing. And that is why everybody is saying that it's a very tough task and it's a climate emergency, as they call it now, as whether it's Earth Day, Climate Reality, Mobis Foundation, everybody's calling it a climate emergency. That is why it is called a climate emergency, because the task is very, very tough ahead of us. Now, how do we come out of this problem? The climate has to be solved. There is hope. The solution will lie in probably 3 keywords, I would say: innovation, technologies, and change in behavior. These 3 key things will have to work in unison to solve this climate crisis in future. To begin with innovation and technology, we know we have to look at new ways of doing things. We have to find new ways of capturing this carbon from atmosphere, putting it back, and also seeing to it that the less carbon is produced by various things we do. And here the role of climate literacy comes in. In case if we are able to talk to our schools, colleges, our young people about the climate challenge, this gives us a huge opportunity. Because you see, in the last 100 years, as I know, most of the inventions, most of the new technologies have come out of the labs, which are situated in the universities. Currently, they are situated in Harvards and MITs and Oxford and Europe, but now they are also coming to China, India. So the universities are the hotbed of where new research is being done by the professors who are extremely learned, and also the young people who want to do something new. They're thinking in a new way. So therefore, universities, colleges, schools become extremely crucial in this strategy to move ahead, because they will give us the innovation, the technology for the future, whether it is energy we are talking about, making better batteries which can store energy, or finding better solutions for clean energy, or we are looking at another way of transportation. We are looking at new ways of transportation. We are looking at new ways of doing agriculture. All these things have to be thought of in the universities, and the young people have to take charge. They have to be now partner into it. They cannot just wait and see. So, and they will play a big role well as far as the technology and innovation comes, because they are so comfortable with the technology. I think even a 10-year-old can handle a mobile better than probably me. I can at 50 years, I can't do it as good as that. So looking at all that, looking at this challenge, looking at the solution. So we thought probably climate literacy is going to play a very big role. And coming to the third part about changing of behavior, that is absolutely crucial. Because if we don't change our behavior, when we stop eating less of meat, we stop wasting our food, we stop wasting water, we stop wasting resources. So these things have to be built into the education in the, as far as part of the climate literacy, so that the audience gets a connect. Currently, they are not feeling connected that this is part of climate change. Well, if you are saving energy, you are saving water, you are planting trees, you are solving climate crisis. So this is what connect, I think we have to get to the youth and to the people around us. Not only youth, I would say, even to the community. Youth can talk to the community. So this is the progress we are looking at. And of course, as we know, climate change is coming, adaptation we have to work on. So that for adaptation also, it is very necessary that our climate literacy teaches people how to get off the harm's way before it strikes, how to reduce the vulnerability, and how to make it more, you can say, inclusive resilience for everyone in, present. So with these words, I think I love this topic. I can speak for 1 hour. So I will cut it short here with time being with 10 minutes given to me. So thank you, Dr. Sab. I think it's going to be a great meeting. We are going to have 2 wonderful days, and I look forward to it. Thank you so much, Evan. Back to you.
Thank you, Adit. I think these are very, very enlightening and encouraging words to begin with the right kind of the muses. Now we have, in fact, Mr. Pradeep Burman, Chairman, Mobius Foundation. In fact, all of you know him. He is so passionate about climate literacy. In fact, he is, apart from being with the chairperson Mobius Foundation, he is also trustee of the Climate Reality Project and associated with so many climate related activities. And just a second, there is Professor H.N. Verma. Just a second. Hello. Professor Verma, your turn is within 5 minutes. So, हाँ, अच्छा, तो लास्ट में आपका मतलब मे बी आफ्टर 30-40 मिनट्स आप कभी भी ज्वाइन कर लीजिएगा, फिर वी विल जस्ट आस्क यू. ओके, नो प्रॉब्लम. So sorry, it was one of the panelists, Professor H.N. Verma. Mr. Pradeep Burman, he has spearheaded the Dabur India Limited, and yesterday, in fact, I had the good fortune to be with him for the whole day. We started, I think he must have started from his home at 7 in the morning and came back by 7-8. In the field, in the villages, he has set up, I think, around 27 years back, Sandesh, sustainable development network of Dabur, and which is working in so many. There were close to 300 SHGs. And in this age, in fact, he was going from village after village. Means we have been traveling all through almost 10 to 12 hours. So that is his zeal and his enthusiasm. We also went to the GAV school, which is one of the model schools. I think Climate Reality Project, Aditya know about that school because he was the one who had trained its teachers on climate change and various other issues. So Mr. Pradeep Burman is really a climate ambassador, climate crusader, whatever we call, and what a good person like him who is spearheading so many climate literacy related activities. He is busy somewhere today, but he has requested Kavya, our colleague, to read out his message. So may I go over to Kavya?
Thanks, sir. I hope I'm audible.
Kavya, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Esteemed panelists, participants across the globe, thank you for joining today. Mr. Pradeep Burman, Chairperson Mobius Foundation, has sent his message and best wishes to the event. He says, and I quote, education is key to the global integrated framework of sustainable development goals. Education is at the heart of our efforts, both to adapt and to change and to the world within which we live. It is recognized as having one of the highest long returns on investment all development goals. There is a need to rethink and broaden the notion of life education. It should enable people to develop awareness themselves and their environment. We at Mobius Foundation, focusing on education and population stabilization issues, and have partnered with Z Media and launched the year-long campaign, Mission Sustainability, Population versus Planet, to conversations nationwide to explain connections between population growth and environmental sustainability, including climate change. Climate change is the most pressing problem being faced by humanity today. Therefore, creating awareness about climate change, particularly about the ways and means to mitigate and adapt to its consequences, is important. Education is an essential element of the global response to climate change. I hope this climate literacy conclave will raise awareness about climate change issues and help people understand and address the impact of global warming. It will also encourage changes in people's attitude and behavior. I commend the organization of this webinar and hope it will go a long way in raising the required knowledge awareness for meaningful climate action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kavya, for reading out the message from Mr. Pradeep Burman. Now, actually, we have the first panelist as Professor H.N. Verma, but he just called. He is Vice Chancellor of Jaipur National University, and the university also has a hospital, and the government has convened a very high-level meeting there. So he thought that it will be over, but unfortunately meeting is prolonging. So he will join as soon as possible whenever he gets over. But we will have him later. But to begin with, let us begin with Professor G.D. Sharma, Vice Chancellor, University of Science and Technology, Meghalaya, India. He will speak on role of educational institutions in sustainable implementation of climate change policies during COVID-19 pandemic. Professor Sharma, in fact, I think around 40 years back, we were together almost 5 years together in Northeastern Hill University. And he has since then rather headed so many institutions, including the Vice Chancellor of the NEHU, as well as the universities of Mizoram, Nagaland, Northeastern Regional Institute of Science and Technology, Arunachal Pradesh, and many universities, many central universities, and he is the founding member of, founding Vice Chancellor of the university in this Chhattisgarh, which is where I recently met him. He's a very leading educationist, eminent scholar, reputed scientist, and well-known academic administrator of India. He has been awarded Birbal Sahni Award by Indian Botanical Society, Best Research Paper Award by Indian Phytopathological Society, Higher Education Leadership Award, many, many awards, and of course, UNESCO Award as well. I think if we go on narrating his achievements, it's so many. And I'm very happy that on my request, he has agreed to be with us. And now I will request Professor Sharma to address the audience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramboji, and I'm sorry that there was some problem of internet connectivity in beginning, but I hope it will be all right.
No, we can listen you very clearly.
Okay, thank you. So, all respected eminent key speakers in this climate Literacy Conclave for South Asia, which is organized for 2 days. And the chairman of Mobius Foundation, Director South Asia, Aditya Pundirji, Pradeep Barmanji, and our Kavya ji. So I am really thankful that you have given me this opportunity to share my views on this very important topic which has been organized on Earth Day. We all in universities and colleges, we are observing this Earth Day from 20th to 22nd of April. And my topic, as you have already told, climate change and its policies and role of educational institutions towards sustainable development. As we know that Earth is only the planet where life exists, and this life is in a very nice way, flourishing, as well as it is growing, developing due to the good combination of gases, temperature, as well as its the evolution in due course of time. These gases are important for life, but due to the man activity, the balance of these gases have created a long effect on the climate, which has resulted in a change in the diversity, particularly the life diversity. And today we have come in such a situation that the loss of diversity is very fast, and nearly half of the diversity has been lost. And in coming days, what we are seeing, the frequency of certain natural disasters like hurricane, tornado, fires, heat waves in the form of the Lu, cyclone, loss of diversity, as well as a number of pandemic diseases are increasing due to the climate change. There are scientific evidence that because of climate change, now we are having problem related to our health, environment sustainability, and also threat to our communities, their survival. Even many of the countries, they are under threat for their survival. The role of education for sustainable development is very important. In fact, the strategies to combat the effect of climate change are put into practice as a global agreement and to achieve the sustainable development goals. Through this education awareness and education participation by the youths, which can raise the awareness and change of the behaviors, lifestyles, and attitude that enables people to make informed decisions about their lives. Recently, this Joe Biden, the president of USA, he has been very active in support of the role of our countries, particularly the whole. He is very much concerned about the control of the climate change, and he has already earmarked $2 trillion to control this. And according to him, if we can play important role in controlling the air pollution, this itself can create millions of jobs to the youths. Generally, we are not having this kind of the approach that how the jobs for the youths can be created by controlling the climate change. A number of policies which have been taken in international fora, especially the Article 12 of Paris Agreement, the outcome document of COP21 stresses the role of educational institutions and youth, particularly in climate change, and through education, training, and public awareness public participation and public access to the information can help to a great extent in bringing climate change to the under control. Other policies like Sustainable Development Goal on Education, Goal 4, and Climate Change, Goal 13, the Lima Ministerial Declaration on Education and Awareness Raising, adopted at COP21 calls for the including climate change and also to include it into school curricula and also in developmental plan. And as we are aware that Supreme Court in India has made compulsory at undergraduate level the course on the environmental biology and environments, and now some of our universities have also developed course on climate change, a separate course. So the other policy made in international fora.
So there is a connectivity issue. उनका हमारा ठीक है. I think there is disruption in connectivity because we cannot hear Professor Sharma. Professor Sharma, are you there? I think this is the problem of technology. And anyway, we have to move forward. He made quite some good points, particularly about the jobs, climate-related jobs or green jobs. If we take action on climate change, there will be many more jobs coming in transition to carbon neutrality. That's how beneficial it is in bringing the sustainable livelihood and job options. The other thing that he made was the Article 21 of the Paris Agreement. And that is the one piece of international agreement, by which all the countries can be requested, in fact, they are mandated to make the climate literacy possible in their countries as a follow-up to under the commitment that NDCs asks for. So I would request, of course, though he might not be available right now, but I will request Professor Sharma that his university is on science and technology. Let us begin doing a climate literacy course, a curriculum there. We will work together, all of us, those who are here. We will work with him, and in order to, at least in one university, to develop a model curriculum for the climate literacy. So thank you very much, Professor Sharma, in absentia, but I will talk to you later. And now we have Professor Kamarul Chaudhary. He is a lead climate change negotiator for the group of 48 least developed countries. You know that that's a very important grouping in climate negotiations. He has vast experience of the UN climate negotiations, having been involved since their inception as a delegate of Bangladesh. He was chair and vice chair of Kyoto Protocol joint UN and UFCC bodies as member, and chaired or facilitated many international negotiations across the globe. Mr. Kamarul Chaudhary has also been serving as a friend of the chair in different UN and UNFCCC conferences over the years, earning a global fame of a troubleshooter in climate diplomacy and sustainable development. Very important, of course, the role of Friends of Chair is always as a troubleshooter to bring together all those parties on negotiating table and come out with a declaration or outcome of the conferences. So over to you, Dr. Kamrul Chaudhary.
So you're not audible.
We can't hear you. There is problem at his end, I think.
Yes, sir. His audio is not connected to the system. I have sent him a message. I will try to
how
get
to
with him again. Yes.
lot of problems.
Sir, in the meantime, I try to get in touch with Dr. Chaudhary and get his audio fixed. I will request that if we can move on to next speaker and then
Yeah, I think yes. Now I think we have a visual treat after all these hiccups. We have Dr. Parth Sathi Roy. He is former director, Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, Department of Space, Government of India, and he is a professional in Earth observation science, vegetation science, LULCC, biodiversity and climate science. Over 35 years in ISRO, Department of Space, superannuated as Director IRS, Chair Professor of the University of Hyderabad from 2012 to 18, Advisor and NASI Senior Scientist ICRISAT 2018-20, and presently Senior Fellow World Resources Institute in a very, very important role. Dr. B.P. Pal National Environment Fellow Award by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India, and ISRO Performance of Excellence Award, Bhaskar Award by ISRS, FNSC, and FNAAS. So very highly decorated person. I would say he was my senior during the university days, and still I consider him as a great mentor and, of course, guide on many matters. I take his advice. And he has, in fact, in the ISRO, while he was working with the Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, he has spearheaded many programs on biodiversity and climate change. So we would like to hear you, Professor Roy.
Yeah, very good morning. Thank you, Dr. Rambhuj, for giving me opportunity to be part of this panel. You have a very distinguished panelist, and I must compliment the MOBIS Foundation for organizing this climate literacy conclave for South Asia. In South Asia, which is a very densely populated and also is a center of many climate change issues. What I have, I will be trying to make a case here, a technology which has been here since last 6 decades and has made already very positive impact in climate literacy and education. The word sentence we quote is a picture is a worth of 1,000 words, and Earth observation systems provides satellite pictures from the space platforms and provides information about the dynamics in space and time. Today, space touches almost every sphere of life. We are aware of it, and starting from communication to the television, the assessing the agriculture production, forest resource, water resource, everywhere the So it has become a kind of inevitable technology to for all Earth observation and people who are involved in sustainable development of Earth. We all know that Earth is heating, but at the same time, poses a major challenges like water security, species loss, food security, carbon emission versus sequestration imbalances. And that's where we need a technology which can provide a timely and a specific data sets which are scientifically validated. It is here Earth observation systems becomes a very important tool. It provides a vantage point to study the Earth. There are two kinds of satellites, primarily geostationary satellite, which are always looking at particular location of the Earth. And another one is the polar orbiting satellites. And these are continuously looking at land, ocean, atmosphere, and weather. I will show you some examples. They are of various ground resolution, that is minimum resolving the repeat cycle, and also they cover different part of electromagnetic spectrum. Instead of going to the technical part of it, I will try to give a success story how the Earth observation has contributed in the policy making in the among the Earth scientists and save the Earth planet. One of the earliest story emerges from 1985 when three scientists on the British origin, they reported during the Antarctic survey that ozone layer is depleting, and this particular observation was validated using the Nimbus satellite. And from 1970s, a TOM satellite, a tropical ozone monitoring system sensor on Nimbus satellite, it detected the ozone hole in 1985 when the paper was published in the Nature. Since then, immediately the 46 nations signed a Montreal Protocol, and many of you must be aware, and they pledged to phase out the substances which cause the ozone depletion. And today, there are 197 members of United Nations which are eventually ratified the treaty and bring the ozone layer to the pre-1980 stage. And I am very happy to say that during this bipolar world, this was achieved with the great success. Many of the ozone depleting chemicals, they have been phased out, and today we see the repair of the repair of the ozone layer. And still, satellite remote sensing provides a scientific basis of data to prove this particular phenomenon. Montreal Protocol has made a statement that perhaps it is the single most successful international agreement to date. There is another major phenomenon which is taking place, the cryosphere, and we all know that glaciers are declining, which are major source of water. The South Asia in particular, the Himalayan glaciers, majority of them have been declining. However, we have in knowledge of this particular phenomenon since last 3 decades. However, we have not been able to come to a common policy to ensure the factors which are causing the declining of the glaciers. We also are aware that the biosphere is largely connected with the surface of the land, and this land surface is getting heated because of the carbon emission and greenhouse gases, and it directly affects the biosphere on which humanity is dependent. And this has been scientifically monitored. A link has been established that land surface temperature has a direct bearing on the vegetation, on the particularly the agriculture. Where the forests are deforested, carbon is emitted by the deforestation process, agriculture is affected because of the desiccation, drought, frequent drought, etc. We are also seeing that satellite remote sensing has provided that Indian continent is losing groundwater because of the excessive use in northern India. The satellite today has, especially geostationary platform satellite, has improved our weather forecasting. It has provides you the cloud movement, the temperature of the cloud, Earth surface temperature, and also it provides, say, many of the disasters related to cyclone. Today, with the availability of meteorological satellite and proper forecasting of track of the cyclones, all along the rim countries of Indian Bay of Bengal, you save millions of lives every year. There is another important information I just wanted to give you, and which is basically of pollution. Satellite remote sensing is providing a very valuable information on the pollutants. The carbon information is being monitored by one of the Japanese satellite, which is called a GeoSat. The Sentinel, the Copernicus program, European Space Agency, monitoring the nitrous oxide and the particulate matter. I would like to bring in attention of yours on one of the event, which is a 2003. One of my paper reported agriculture burning, and because of this, many of the airports and the Indo-Gangetic part of Indo-Gangetic plain started experiencing the early fog, and it was not a fog; it was basically a mixture of biomass burning from agriculture fields and the fog, which is called as a smog. Appearing smog in October has become a regular phenomenon, and when 2003, when it was reported, I was questioned by many of the authors, and we published this work in international journal. And since then, today, one can see that this particular phenomena, which takes place in majority of a part of India and neighboring country, the biomass burnt spreads over the entire Indo-Gangetic plain. It combines with the wind which comes from the westerly winds and it goes up to the northeastern part of the. So these processes actually have been monitored with the satellite picture, and when you show these pictures, people tend to believe. Today, the global effort is there to make these data sets available. 20 years back, when I started this technology to use in India, India was among the 4 or 5 countries who were acquiring this data. But today, because of the urgency, this data is available in open source. Many of the countries have started making this data available, and starting from the ground to this global scale, people are integrating information of the various resources, weather processes, and the atmospheric pollutions. These are getting integrated in global systems, emergence of global climate models, integrated survey for natural resource management and sustainable development. are the major beneficiary of use of this technology. Parallelly, in last 50, 60 years, this technology has become much more advanced, in the sense people are using sensor systems placed in the land, ocean, and also field surveys, and they combine this information with the satellite observations and are able to model the systems much more efficiently. Hence, I conclude that space is the only way to prepare a blueprint of the planet Earth from the vantage point for monitoring, studying the Earth, and total system to continue update and unprecedented scale induced by anthropogenic interactions. Today, Google Earth Engine, Google Earth, they are made this technology amenable to the younger generation. They are familiar. They can monitor the ecological footprint of the climate change much more effectively. And there is plenty of a scope. The disseminate this knowledge up to the school children, in the colleges, and also strengthening the capacity those people who are policy makers and the people who are involved in this particular effort of saving the planet Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. P.S. Roy. In fact, when we discussed, we were very keen to show the slides, so we were looking forward. But anyway, you made your point very succinctly, and how this space technologies can help find solutions and initiate climate action. Both you talked about at the policy level as well as for the youth. So thank you so much for enlightening us on this very, very interesting field. Luckily, Dr. Kamarul Chaudhary is, I think now he can be heard now. So we request Dr. Chaudhary to make his presentation.
Thank you very much. And also, I would like to thank you for inviting me to make this intervention. Climate change, especially we are now facing in South Asia and across the world. We are amid a climate emergency. So how best we can resolve this climate emergency like COVID-19 pandemic? With that kind of emergency or urgency, can we resolve this crisis? Can we overcome this crisis? South Asia is a very hot spot. This hot spot has already been facing climate disasters. Climate-induced loss and damages are mounting day in and day out. How many, say, cyclones, tornadoes, flooding, inundation, drought, and mountain melting down, ice melting down, we are facing in South Asia for last couple of decades. It is escalating. The problem is escalating. Are we ready to fight this menace? It is a Herculean task. But for that, we need to educate our kids. Education in South Asia, we have a rich culture of education. We had some ancient universities in this subcontinent for centuries. Those seat of high education, high learning are there. But are these institutions our educational institutions rising to the occasion to face climate change? Are they conducting empirical studies, research, which require lot of tenacities, lot of laborious work? But unfortunately, the scientific community in this region, though late Rajendra Pasuri, he was IPCC chair, vice chair for very many years. And we have a lot of scientists, but still we are missing great quality empirical studies, research, scientific innovation. We are lagging behind. But South Asia is 1/4 of the world population. So to rescue this 1/4, 1/5, or 1/4 population of the world, we need to escalate our education system, mount our educational institutions to rise to the occasion. But that ambition is nowhere near, despite our governmental efforts in South Asian countries like India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives. Our efforts are there, but we are not coping to the crisis. The amount of research work do we require, the level of education we want to have to match this fight, and also globally make ourselves competitive, one is a Herculean task. Climate negotiation is a tricky issue. It's a political issue. And the political economy of climate change is also changing, is also not favoring the South Asian countries. That is also an unfortunate part of the global negotiation, because we are at the receiving end, say India, Bangladesh, Maldives, or Pakistan, or say Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka. We are marginalized in the negotiation process over the years. Though when we have crafted the Climate Change Framework Convention in 91, 92, then we had a lot of rated negotiators. I still fondly remember Ambassador Dasgupta of India. He was instrumental. We worked together at the time. We had very many negotiators from South Asia at that point of time of history, who were pioneers in the negotiation process for climate change. And also in scientific community, we had leaders like late Rajendra Pasuri and others. But we can translate that at the ground level. Education and also global negotiation that didn't trickle down to the ground level in entire South Asia. That is the tragedy. Even say for innovation in renewable energy, in other say non-fossil fuel sources, we couldn't make an effective dent in the labyrinth. So how best we can do that? We can educate our people, raise the level of awareness so that our people can be innovative enough. Our farmers can adapt to climatic changes, abrupt changes, because our crop cycle has already been changing. Our seasons are changing. Some of the seasons are disappeared from the season calendar. So these kind of say studies, education, and awareness raising should go hand in hand. And also we need to mobilize lot of investment in education, investment in say mass awareness, mass media, we need to invest heavily, but we have resource constraints in South Asia. So in South Asian context, we need to say build cooperation, regional cooperation, and inter-country bilateral cooperation within South Asia. North-South dialogue, South-South dialogue, South-South cooperation. Those universities of southern countries should exchange within South Asia. Our educational institutions should cooperate with each other so that we can face this global problem which has inflicted us. Because historically speaking, South Asia is not responsible for greenhouse gas emission, carbon emission, global warming. We caused a very little. But that historical responsibility of the industrialized world, they are not responding. They are not taking that responsibilities as they had taken it when we have crafted the convention. And in the convention, Climate Change Framework Convention, it was clearly written that it is the historical responsibility lies with the industrialized world. Annex 1 countries, there, even in Kyoto Protocol, they were asked to cut back carbon emissions from the 1990 level, 5%. But that didn't implement it. Rather, we have exceeded that carbon emission without going to cut back our emissions. So how to cut back our emissions? How to share carbon space? Because industrialized world has utilized more than their due share. But South Asia didn't utilize that. So that carbon space we need to also maintain, because South Asia, we have a largest portion of our population are still poor, still lowest of the low level in the say economic atlas. So how best we can educate our people, and also the literacy we can raise. That challenge we need to confront. That challenge we have to take up, because climate change is hitting us. Adverse impacts are hitting us day in and day out. The South Asian people have to be rescued. We are on the hook. How to take us off the hook is a huge, huge challenge. And 1.5 billion people of South Asia do need that courage, that political commitment, that rise to the occasion is an urgent need of the hour. That call we have to respond and try to pressure on the developed world so that we can have carbon space. We can have climate finance flow. We can have technology transfer flow, capacity building flow, and educational institutions in South Asia should cooperate, collaborate to raise the literacy in climate change. That will make successful this climate education literacy conclave. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chaudhary. I think you made your point very, very succinct. South Asia indeed is a climate hotspot, and more so Bangladesh, and particularly two countries, Bangladesh and Maldives. They are the hottest spot. Yes, I think negotiations level, in fact, the voices from South Asia sometimes are muted, but naturally now they are coming up in a very very strong measure. In fact, a lot of, particularly India, which is leading the way, and it should, in fact, make a common point with all the, particularly neighboring countries. We could, on the issue of climate literacy and education, in collaboration with all these those agencies present here, I think we must come out with a common strategy for the coming Glasgow, this COP, and on many other national and regional front, the South Asian front. So thank you very much again, Mr. Chaudhary. It was indeed a pleasure to hear you. Moving ahead, we have Dr. Nawang Nobru. He's Director, Bhutan Ecological Society. And Dr. Nawang, he joined Bhutan Ecological Society in 2017 after having served as Director of Ugyen Wangchuk Institute for Conservation and Environment. He was the pioneer for the establishment of the society while at the institute in 2010. As director at the UWICE, he helped convene Climate Summit for a Living Himalayas, a process that brought together civil society, academics, and government representatives from Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, and Nepal, culminating in signing of the agreement in November 2011 to adopt a framework action plan to adapt to climate change. He also initiated the establishment of the School for Field Studies in Bhutan. Prior to working at the institute, he has served as park manager for the Pusmengla National Park, where he led the drafting of 5-year program for the park and also the adjoining biological corridor. I think very committed ecologist, biologist, and climate scientist. Dr. Nawang Nobru, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ram, for that kind words. And may I begin by saying what a privilege it is to be part of this conclave. It's a great pleasure to be part of this Climate Literacy Forum for South Asia. Thank you for inviting me. I was just seeing in the Economist, it was a very good way to put it, that Bhutan is a land of steep slopes, because the way we have vaccinated the people, the slope has gone up the rate was very steep. And perhaps Bhutan is also the last Himalayan biodiversity refuge. I'm sure Dr. Nakul from ECMOD will concur with me on this. But unfortunately, climate change, I think, is expected to radically alter everything from our mountain species composition to Bhutan's energy generation capacity to how we grow our food. And as we all know, Bhutan is also home to over 2,600 glaciers. 17 of them are potentially dangerous. And most of Bhutan's productive landscapes actually lie along the valleys carved along, following the path of these glaciers, along which some of Bhutan's most iconic cultural sites also lie along the path of these glaciers. So climate and climate change are intricately linked to the everyday life of the Bhutanese and the mountain communities. And it touches our economic possibilities, not only our economic possibilities, but also endangers the very structures which connect us to our past. So it has a cultural bearing as well. And because climate change touches every aspect of human endeavor, I think addressing climate change is complex, as all of us understand, and convoluted. The issue is further complicated due to differential consumption patterns. We all understand that the Western world consumes far more than us, as we say in the southern region. And then there is again this vexed question of, so who is responsible for where we are as of today? Solutions are also hindered due to differential capacities, and is often the case. It's mostly the marginalized who stand to lose the most. Those with least access to technology, finances, adaptation capacity. And I'm afraid Bhutan and most of the South Asian countries fall within this circle as of today. And part of the challenge in effectively addressing the climate issue is bringing everyone up to speed. And I think this is what we are talking about today, in terms of what climate change means, what does the climate crisis mean, and making people understand that it's urgent and that we need to act now. Therefore, it is our understanding that climate literacy must not only cover the youth, not only bureaucrats, not only researchers, but the challenge is to bring everybody on board, because everybody is affected. And of course, then we need to address, so what is the most effective form of climate literacy? What are we talking about when we talk about climate literacy? Is it just enough that people understand the science of climate change, which, by the way, is very, very complex. Fortunately for Bhutan, we are a very small country, as all of us know, and we have always been fortunate because we have put environmental conservation at the forefront of all our endeavors. Bhutan is currently carbon negative, and the constitution requires that every Bhutanese be mindful stewards and champions of the environment, and by extension, champions of the climate. Given this entrenched environmental champions narrative, Bhutan has been ramping up climate literacy initiatives with leadership provided by the royal government, supported by civil society, academia, and multilateral agencies. As of today, the organization which is responsible for climate change in Bhutan, called the National Environment Commission, they are spearheading together with the UNDP and the Royal University to integrate climate change curricula within high school and colleges of Bhutan. I think this is a very welcome initiative and probably help youngsters who come out of our education system to better appreciate climate change, not only better appreciate, but be able to deal with and provide solutions for this problem we are facing. And to engage the problems, because I personally feel that it's not enough to engage youth, and to engage the public, the Bhutan Ecological Society provides platforms in the form of symposiums and public lectures to allow for debates, discourses surrounding climate change. And I think there are also upcoming youth groups such as the Global Shapers Thimphu Hub, who are also proactively engaging the youth. And I think engaging youth is critical because the radically altered future Earth is going to be where they will inhabit. I think most of us will be gone by that time. So I think it's very important. This year, our organization, in collaboration with the UNDP and again the Royal Government, we will be organizing a 5-part discourse. We want to build on the physical basis of climate change and then move on to making public understand how best to mitigate and adapt to climate change. The whole idea is to raise the level of awareness for the public in terms of what climate change means. I personally think the science and stories are here. One of the earlier speakers alluded to a glacier lake outburst in Himachal. There are heat waves and so on and so forth. All the stories are there. But I also personally think that the noise level is very, very high. So we are not able to appreciate what the signals are and what the noise actually are. And I think as we go forward, the challenge will really be to filter out the noise from the signal and focus on what truly matters. The other problem, that's just my personal thought. The other problem is there's so many of these divergent discourses happening right now. And the challenge will be to make sure that the stories we tell ourselves about climate change should resonate strongly with ourselves, with the public. Because without that, by just telling them that, oh, the temperatures are rising or the glaciers are going to melt, I don't think it will push the public to action. So we need to tell stories which touch us deeply. And I think not only we cannot just discuss about satellite imagery, the physical basis of climate change. We also need to take a hard look and really discuss things about climate justice and who is responsible for this. The responsibility of nations need to be talked about. And just before I end, I just want to tell a short story. When I was working for the government, I had this privilege of attending COP15, which was touted as the solution for answering the climate crisis at that point of time. At that point, Copenhagen was very, very cold. It was in December. You cannot, first of all, have a climate change, global warming conference when it is negative something. People are not going to buy it. But what I realized in the West was that when we were put up in a guest house, that even their toilets were heated. Now we have a quandary, because on the one hand, we are telling almost half of the humanity that you can't even heat up our homes, but some of us would like to even heat up our toilets. So the point being that this whole climate debate and climate literacy should also discuss things about justice. I think this has to be very, very important as we proceed further. And I have no doubt that climate literacy will have to play an important role, a dominant role, in fact, as we move forward in climate crisis. We just need to be mindful, as I alluded before, about how best to do it, because there are many ways of doing it. The noise levels are very, very high as I see it now. And perhaps, I think on a more positive note, because we are talking about education, if we do the climate literacy in the right way, maybe we have valuable lessons from there in terms of how to reshape our whole education model as well as we move forward as humanity. After all, I personally believe that education is the only bank we can rely on to help build and sustain a world which is verdant, climate resilient, whatever you want to call it, and a world which works for all. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity and giving me this chance to share a few words from my end. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nawang. I think indeed it was a pleasure to listen to you so passionately. Of course, Bhutan is can be called a champion not only in South Asia but entire world, with your new concepts on gross national happiness, and of course you are carbon negative, not neutral. You are on the rather we would say climate plus point side. So I think in this front, climate literacy, Bhutan must lead the whole South Asia, particularly. Let us begin with this initiative. We will have more closed discussions on this issue, how to have a common initiative for South Asia with a lot of experience, lot of expertise in this region, particularly the examples like Bhutan. That is very, very refreshing, which is coming. I remember Copenhagen, of course, it was snowing to some extent, and long queues there, people walking to registers. Almost that was most unorganized, and outcome was also not very encouraging. So these negotiations keep on going, and yes, they have their own pace. But luckily, in wherever these negotiations, education and literacy is one which is where there is no negotiation at all. There are always unanimous decisions that okay, these should be there. But I think you made your point very clear, that how, what, why, and how. That is what important. The climate justice, the people who are in the energy starved areas, who do not have the energy to cook their meal, we cannot talk to them about many all these issues. So it has to touch their heart as well. So that is why this the question of common but differentiated responsibility and just climate justice is so important. So thank you very much for this very innovative perspective from Bhutan. Now we have a very, very eminent, I would say, scientist, climatologist, biodiversity specialist, my very long-time friend, Dr. Nakul Chhetri. He is with the ECMOD, you all know, this pioneer institution, and is as regional program manager for transboundary landscapes. At CMOD, he oversees the flagship transboundary landscape program by providing strategic direction and management to 4 transboundary landscapes and REDD RED plus initiatives across the Hindu Kush Himalayas. With designated expertise as senior biodiversity specialist, Dr. Chhetri has more than 20 years of experience in biodiversity conservation, landscape management, ecosystem services, climate change impact assessment, biodiversity informatics, and upscaling the promotion of transboundary landscapes and trans-Himalayan transects. Before joining CIMA, Dr. Chhetri served as a fellow at the ATRI in its Eastern Himalayan program. He has so far published more than 50 peer-reviewed journal articles in international journals, 52 books, 24 book chapters, and more than 25 popular articles. Dr. Chhetri has PhD and MSc in zoology from North Bengal University, India. Very, very accomplished person. My good friend, in fact, we are still, of course, working on a transboundary landscape, the Manas Kanchenjunga landscape. Of course, the COVID has slowed it down, but hopefully we will again catch up, and we will have many more collaborations. So, Dr. Nakul Chhetri, floor is yours.
Sir, requesting you to unmute yourself.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear now?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Boch, and also our colleagues Kabya for this opportunity. This is indeed a great opportunity for me to be with these eminent panelists as well as the participants. As indicated, my presentation is already there. The climate change, Himalayan biodiversity and adaptation options for nature-based solution is my topic. And thanks for this opportunity to bring this perspective from the Himalayan region. I'll be touching upon these aspects of Himalayan biodiversity, the drivers of change, adaptation options, and also highlight some of the recent development in the HKS region in terms of regional cooperation and call to actions. Himalayan biodiversity, as you know, is part of the mountain ecosystem. And at the global level, we have 22% of the land surface as mountains, and 25% of the mountains are supported by the high biodiversity aspects. And there are quite a bit of human population dependent living on it, and also the downstream peoples are also dependent on this. And this particular slide shows the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, which is very important and critical for the people. Here are some facts and figures related to Hindu Kush Himalayan region. There are 4 out of 36 biodiversity hotspots. It is also known as the largest reserve of the ice outside the polar region, and there are serving and feeding on 10 major rivers in Asia. And then definitely there are diverse culture, language, religion, and in addition there are high biodiversity perspective like the important bird areas and other biodiversity areas. So what is important is 250 million people live in this particular region, and also 1.5 billion are dependent on this region, which is 1/3 of the global population. So you can see that though it is spread over from Afghanistan to Myanmar and Bangladesh, it is a contiguous bioclimatic zone. There is no barrier or the differences in terms of the climatic zone. And likewise, there are ecoregions which are contiguous from one country to another, but there are variations of ecoregions type across the region. And what is important is at this point, there are more than 500 protected areas covering almost 40% of the region, or the land is already in the protected area network. But it also has no notion of transboundary protected area, which is complementing from one country to another for the conservation perspective point of view. But what is important to know is that this particular region is also supporting in terms of different services, and also these services to one of the highest populated region like the Gangetic Plain and other basins which are feeding the basins and serving as a water tower. So having said that, definitely climate change is one of the major drivers, but climate change is not only the drivers, which I would like to bring to this forum in the perspective way, so that if you really look at the history of human population rise, then you can see in this particular slide that in 1700 to 1800, then 1900 and 2000, how the population density increased over the period of time, giving much more pressure in the given and available natural resources. Likewise, one of the major 5 drivers of change at the global level, then this land use land cover change again is a concern even in our region. You can see that some of the countries are having 4 to 7% change over the period of time, and some are even more than 10% change over the period of time, which is bringing some issue related to conservation as well as sustaining of the ecosystem services. As it was already mentioned by Professor Roy, that the pollution is also an emerging but very hazardous pollution, or the drivers of change. Again, the air pollution issue is now quite prevalent in the region, and you can see our region is quite eminent or prominent in terms of the pollution according to WHO. Another very important but lightly, ignored kind of priority is the invasive species. And if you look at this particular map, then again, the invasive species being one of the 5 major drivers of change in the biodiversity perspective is also highlighted. And it is quite obvious that in our region also, it is a major issue. But what is important and to deal with is we have to understand this perspective of climate change, which is being talked since 2007 after the IPCC report. And we have completed this HIMAP report recently in 2019. It was published, and it gives a very quite a bit of clear indication that the region is having variation in terms of climate change scenario, and even if it is a 1.5 degree centigrade agreement as it was agreed in Paris, it is not going to help in the Himalayan region, because Himalayan region is having a warming higher rate with a higher rate, and even in a 1.5 degree, then in ideal situation, the control situation, it is 2.1 degree, and if it is RCP scenario 4.5, then it is 2.5, and in the current emission trade, it is 5.5 degree, likely to increase in terms of temperature. But there are variations you can see in the slide that Karakoram, Central Himalaya, and Southeast Himalaya are having variations in terms of this scenario. Likewise, collectively, you can see that the vulnerability is quite eminent in the region. And this particular slide shows about the species vulnerability, and our region is quite prominently featured in this. So what I would like to do is, it has been already talked that some actions are needed and the adaptation options are to be prioritized. And I'll talk about lens with the lens of the Sustainable Development Goal, that the environmental perspective, the socio-cultural perspective, and economic perspective need to be thought in, and especially in the mountain region, the environmental security is a major thrust area. We have poverty, as it has been already reflected, that socio-economic condition, as well as the cultural preservation that is being here for ages should be also our priority. Then economic viability, because in the mountain context, all type of economic developments are not relevant, and it is sometimes detrimental. So it has to be viable economic options that need to be provided and prioritized. So just to let you know, I'll just give few examples what our interventions are addressing to these perspectives. We have to focus on some geographical area to demonstrate. And ICIMOD is an intergovernmental organization, and we bridge science and policy perspective, and then try to advocate in terms of policy embedding in the practices at the national level. And these are the geographical area where transboundary landscape is one of the program interventions, where we are addressing from Western Himalaya to Central Himalaya to Eastern Himalaya with our transboundary initiatives in the HKS region. So one of the environmental security in biodiversity science, it has been already reflected by Nawang also, that there are climate change happening, and there are shift of species are being already reported, and the existing protected areas in the HKS are smaller, and they are not adequate for large species, or even those species which are looking refuge at the high altitude or higher elevations. So with that prevailing climate conditions resulting in the habitat shift, then definitely the connectivity corridors are one of the options of nature-based solutions. And in many of these transboundary landscapes, we are advocating and promoting this identification as well as establishment, and also maintenance or promotion of this connectivity corridor, so that the species can be in a safer state while the climate change are happening. Likewise, as it has been already mentioned, that we are having different type of challenges, and one of the major challenges in the Himalaya region is the drinking water crisis. And drinking water crisis are mainly driven by the land use land cover aspects. And obviously the springs are drying and water crises are quite prevalent. And geological study and revival through recharge is being already practiced. It is there are quite bit of protocol already available, and we are trying to advocate this in those areas which are needed in terms of the addressing issue of water crisis. Likewise, our region is rich in culture. Our region is rich in mountain perspective and mountain related crops, which are unique to our region. And this crop, as well as the traditional system that was there for ages and millennia, is slowly deteriorating and diminishing. So obviously, to maintain these crops as a food security context, and also to preserve the culture, then what we are trying to do is to link this traditional food and culture with tourism. So the homestay and the traditional food which are being practiced earlier is being revived. And it is linked to tourism, so that the economic options are also there. And this, based on these economic incentives, the cultural preservation as well as the traditional continuity of our sustainable way of lifestyle in the mountains are continued. Likewise, some of this, some of the ecosystems are contiguous, as I have already mentioned. That rangeland, which is almost 60% of the Himalayan region, is rangeland, and this yak herding, sheep herding, and other livestock herding are the major source of income. But in due course of time, this traditional practices of herding, from migration from lowland to highland, from one country to another, is being restricted. And because of this, the whole aspect of culture as well as the genetic exchange of species such as yak is being restricted. And this kind of restriction is also bringing challenges in terms of adapting to the climate change, adapting to the poverty-ridden aspects. And we are trying to facilitate how this genetic exchange and the traditional culture of yak herding can be revived. And in one of the landscape, we have already facilitated and came up with this aspect, facilitation of this exchange, which is being already appreciated by some of the countries like Nepal and India. Likewise, mountain tourism is one of the options of viable economy, and this viable economy, based on our culture and based on the rich biodiversity, can be one option for the mountain community to thrive, as well as cope up with the changing scenario of globalization, and also to adapt better in terms of climate change. So we are trying to capitalize on this rich culture and then turn it into an option for ecotourism or mountain tourism, which are being promoted in each of these landscapes as economic incentives. Having said that, there are challenges and there are diverse options available in each of the countries. But what is already being said earlier is that we need regional cooperation. And for that regional cooperation, we have gone through a very serious steps of understanding the state of knowledge in terms of biodiversity, challenges, adaptation options, climate change, glaciers. So all these aspects were reviewed and then compiled into this report called Hindu-Kush-Himalayan region. And also, we have dealt with what is the situation of this unfolding pandemic, and how we can cope up with this pandemic and pandemic-like situation in future. So combining this, we came up with this edge-case call to action for sustaining mountain environment and improve livelihood in the edge-case region. And recently, based on this, we have came up with this 6 urgent actions for the Hindu-Kush-Himalayan region. The actions are cooperate at all levels, then recognize the priority and uniqueness of edge-case mountain people, limit global warming to 1.5 degree, achieve the sustainable development goal, enhance ecosystem resilience, and share information and knowledge for betterment of the Himalayan region. And this action, which was evolved over the period of time, is being pleaded and agreed and signed as a declaration by the the 8 regional member countries. And here in this slide, you can see some of the countries' ministers of HK's region, and some of other colleagues and eminent personalities are there, which happened in 15th of October last year. So with this, I would like to stop here. Thank you very much, Dr. Bose, once again for this opportunity. Sorry for being a little bit of more than the given time. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nakul. And I think it was very, very, very important. Like ECMOD, as usual, has been playing such an important role in climate resilience, adaptation, and of course, you mentioned quite certain areas which are so important in livelihood, maintaining the resilience of the people, and also providing them the livelihood opportunity. Sustainability issues are also there that you touched upon. I would also like to mention that your Himalayan University Consortium has a very important role to play in climate education and literacy. And I think we will, at some later date, while close interactions, we will come out with some strategy common for the Himalayan region. And of course, not only trans-Himalayan, this landscapes, but also some of the landscapes that are akin to that region where we can adapt those strategies. So thank you very much. Now we have Professor Irandi Lokupitia, University of Colombo, Sri Lanka, and she will be speaking on what climate change related aspects are important in promoting climate literacy. Very important aspect. She is a senior lecturer in Department of Geology and Environmental Sciences at the University of Colombo, and she has worked as senior lecturer in the University of Kelaniya, and she has also worked at Colorado State University, US as a research scientist. She has received many awards and have done many publications, very accomplished academician. Professor Lokupitia, and over to you, would like to hear you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please.
And first of all, thanks Dr. Rambuj for the introduction. And I would also like to thank Ms. Sheetal, who invited me, and the organizing committee for inviting me to be a part of this important event. Actually, I have some slides to share with you all. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you have to rush the slides. Very nice to see, but have to be brief.
Yes. Thank you. So the title of my talk today is what climate change related aspects are important in promoting climate literacy. So as you all know, climate change is the biggest issue of the century. It's the most important environmental issue of the century, as you all will agree when you see all these impacts of climate change. So it has been continuing since Industrial Revolution. And so when you promote climate change literacy, what kind of aspects are important, whether it's the impacts, causes, consequences, or whether it's a scientific background. So based on that, how can you approach in promoting climate literacy or in communicating climate change? So as you all know, these are the very bad impacts of climate change. We have been experiencing increased pest outbreaks, loss of habitats for various animals, and droughts and floods, especially in this part of the world. We are very much impacted by the extreme weather events, and also melting of glaciers in the other parts of the world. And I don't want to go more on that. And as you all know, the last 7 years ranked as the top 7 hottest years. And the last year was ranked number 2. 2016 was the number 1. It was the warmest year so far on record. And the warmest 10 years so far have occurred since 2005. So it's like the biggest issue that we need to focus on, and we can start from either impacts or the causes. And as you all know, what has caused climate change is our own activities since industrial revolution, mostly burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, agricultural activities, and then we can go to scientific background and what are the greenhouse gases that have led to climate change. The three major ones are carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Methane and nitrous oxide emissions mostly from the agriculture, and carbon dioxide most from fossil fuel burning and deforestation activities. And so the last decade, since 2010, it has been the warmest decade so far. And earlier we used to say the previous decade was the warmest. But now we say the last decade since 2010 has been the warmest decade so far on record. And you can see how the temperature has increased over time. And the hottest one is temperature was recorded in 2016. And when we go to scientific background, and you can see when the carbon dioxide emissions were started in Mauna Loa in late 1950s, the CO2 concentration on Earth was only about 315 parts per million, but now it has increased, it has gone beyond 410 now. And along with that, you can see how the temperature on Earth has increased. So these two graphs clearly show the correlation between carbon dioxide emissions and the global temperature rise over time. And the impact of COVID-19. So one of the main reasons has been the fossil fuel burning, fossil carbon emissions. And you can see during the last year, during the lockdown period, it got drastically reduced because of the reduced emissions, less air travel, less transportation. All that has led to a decline in the CO2 emissions. So in promoting climate literacy, right now we are in an era of SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, and we are talking about the Paris Agreement along with that, because our ambitious goal of the Paris Agreement is to reduce global temperature rise less than 2 degrees compared to the pre-industrial levels. So in this era, promoting climate literacy should target minimizing climate change and its impacts while changing human behavior and attitudes. So in doing that, we can do two main things. One is basic awareness creation on the issue, on causes, consequences, and evidence of climate change. And based on that, when we talk about the causes and what we have been experiencing, we can talk about our responsibility. This is something we can do in basic awareness sessions for anyone. Actually, we have been conducting programs for school children, some hotel people, even public health inspectors. So you have to show that you have a responsibility. It's us who have caused this, and we are impacting those bad impacts, irreversible consequences of climate change. And now we have a big responsibility to try to reverse that. And then you have to talk about the action needed. What kind of action is anticipated from the audience? Actually, awareness creation should be action oriented. Otherwise, there is no point in awareness creation. So awareness creation, action oriented awareness creation, and that is basic awareness creation. But beyond that, we have climate action. What you need to do on real ground in terms of mitigation and climate adaptation. Mitigation aims at reducing your emissions, and adaptation aims at adjusting to climate change or developing resilience. So you have to take action at local, regional, and global level. And as you all know, policy interventions, those have to happen on real ground. And also R&D, research and development activities, technology transfer and innovations. And of course, this process should involve multi-stakeholders. And when it comes to R&D, I'm from University of Colombo. I would like to mention that we have been teaching climate change. I have been teaching climate change since 2013 our honors degree students, and we have a research program, and we have the one and only postgraduate program on climate change. The MSc, we have MSc in climate change and environmental management. Actually, our students have been doing research in this area. So, and technology transfer, actually, the country did a technology needs assessment in the past, and also technology transfer is something very important in promoting climate literacy. When you consider the in-depth literacy transfer, because all those countries who have technology need to transfer that to the countries who really don't have that technological know-how. So in this process, involvement of all the stakeholders are important, not only the government, academia, private sector, NGOs, everyone is important. So just to start with a small example. So in terms of awareness creation, so you all know that it's fossil fuel burning that has been the biggest cause for climate change, and global anthropogenic CO2 emissions. This is how it has increased over time, starting from the mid-19th century. And this is based on the AR5 or fifth assessment report. So it has been increasing at an alarming rate, as you all know. And then when you consider the global fossil fuel consumption by different countries, the number one has been China, then United States, and then India, and so on. But we have to make sure, even in awareness creation, what you have to look at is the global, not only the country-wise emission, but the per capita emission. So, for instance, China had about 28% of global fossil fuel emission consumption in 2018, but annual per capita emission was about 7 metric tons, which is less than half of what the USA had. And it's important to let people know that what you emit today, about half of those emissions remain in the atmosphere, because it's the land vegetation and ocean, which absorb the anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions. But right now, we have exceeded the capacity of the absorption capacity of these things, and now annually about half of what we emit remain in the atmosphere. It's remaining in the atmosphere. And then you can talk about various evidences. So this is something that appeared on the web, Siberian heat wave of 2020. It's almost impossible without climate change. And these are some of the examples from my country. We have been experiencing devastating floods, and during drought periods, hot period, increased occurrence of forest fires, and all these have cost lots of money to the government. So when you talk about that, you can make sure that people should know that it is our responsibility to minimize our own activities. Then you can approach in simple awareness creation, in basic awareness creation, that it is simple action or behavioral changes that are needed from you at individual levels, like energy saving, switching off fans and lights when they are not in use, conservation of water, waste segregation. Actually, at the university, we have been doing proper waste segregation, and in our research, I will talk about that later. And then, of course, planting trees. So this is basic awareness creation, but then beyond that, the next step is climate action. In doing there, in this, when you talk about climate action, there you can talk about, okay, planting trees, trees are absorbing carbon, that's true, but at ecosystem level, how much carbon can be absorbed by different types of ecosystems, like that. So basic awareness creation need to target actions. So when you action at individual level, awareness creation, action-oriented awareness creation, then climate action, which should target action beyond that, local, regional, and global. and policy interventions at all these scales, and research and development and technology transfer. And I already mentioned this to you. And under research and development activities, I would like to talk a little bit about what we have. One small example. Actually, at University of Colombo, we started doing an annual waste survey starting from 2017. And over time, we have been able to reduce our waste usage, amount of waste generation over time. And we have created awareness that waste plays a big role in global warming, because when the mixed waste ends up in some landfill site, it leads to methane emissions. So once you do proper waste segregation and let the recyclers do recycling of the separated waste, then it can reduce those methane emissions. Actually, methane has a global warming potential about 30 times compared to carbon dioxide, as you all know. So we can reduce our emissions by simple action like that. Actually, even this is one poster presentation that was done by our environmental officer at the university, impact of university waste management practices on greenhouse gas emissions at landfill sites. So there we had calculated how much carbon emissions can be avoided by shifting to good waste management practices. Similarly, these are some of the papers my undergraduate and postgraduate students have published in various journals, including Science Citation Index journals. Only a handful I have put there. So what I wanted to say here is that you have to target basic awareness creation, action-oriented awareness creation to start with, and then move from there to higher levels to have true climate action, including mitigation and adaptation. That's all I have for this 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor. I think you made your point very well. Action related, rather awareness should lead to action. And what a good example you have cited in the university itself. You have reduced GHG, greenhouse gas emission, by very effective waste management system. So thank you very much. Now we could see now Professor H.N. Verma. He is available, and we would be very glad to hear him. To introduce him, Professor Verma is the Vice Chancellor of Jaipur National University, and he was the Professor of Botany and Dean and Pro-Vice Chancellor of Lucknow University, where, in fact, I was associated with him. He set up the Department of Environmental Sciences there. And of course, under his leadership, that department flourished a lot. I was visiting lecturer there. Invited, rather, I used to take a few classes under his guidance. He is a very known molecular biology, biotechnology, and also has done extensive work on diagnosis, characterization of viruses and management of virus diseases of economically important plant species. Very important subject. And published around 150 research papers in national and international journals. So many accomplishments, Professor H.N. Verma. We would be very, very delighted to hear you. So over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Rambuj. It is good to see you after such a long time, although it is virtual.
We'll see you.
I'm so sorry, but I couldn't be on time because of some urgent meeting. Because new guidelines of COVID, they have been issued today. So all the programs, they have to be rescheduled in the university. So I was busy in that, but I could take out some time when I got your call. So I must thank you for inviting me. As you know, as you have already said during my introduction, which was really very kind of you that I am basically a botanist and a plant biologist. I'm not an environmentalist, although I was associated with the environmental science program at Lucknow University for a pretty long time. But the issue which you have taken today, climate literacy conclave, which you are conducting today, that is very, very important, I must say, because the people, although they are quite aware about this issue, but still not much is being done how to save this our mother earth from the consequences of the climate change. And hence this topic which you have selected is very, very relevant. And I don't have much to say about the matter, but I must say that I must emphasize about a few points. As you all know, this climate change, a most complex issue. It involves so many issues, and I think my previous speaker, she has clearly spelled out all these issues very nicely. So this issue of climate change we have been facing for the last so many years now, even for, I must say, for a couple of decades now. And this one thing which must realize that this climate change is a global problem. And if there is a change in the climate at one place, this is bound to affect the whole of the world. So we have to be very, very careful while dealing with the various issues of the climate. And the carbon dioxide, which of course has been talked about, Professor Ambuj has also talked about it. That is the major issue, which is the heat trapping gas. And this, as you all know, um, uh, people might say that there is not much emission of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now we have lowered it, but it's still, whatever carbon dioxide has been released, that lingers in the atmosphere for a very, very long time, say hundreds of years, and is responsible for the recent global warming. Even if we stop today the emissions of the various greenhouse gases, which you all know, perhaps I will not go into details, the global warming and the climate change will continue to affect future generation. So we have to think about the future generation, because what we are going to leave today, that will affect our future generation, because the future generation is going to tell us, or they will say that you were the responsible for this climate change which we are facing today, and the problems which we are facing because of the climate change. The humanity is committed to some level of climate change, I must say, because all the developmental activities, they have to continue, but they should continue in such a way that there is least emission of the pollutants in the environment. Emission of greenhouse gases, as you all know, is rising despite increasing awareness. In 2013, the daily level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere surpassed 400 parts per billion for the first time, which was very alarming. And this climate change is a very great threat for the future of our planet, and we have to think about it. We have to think about the various ways how to do the mitigation, how to do the other issues which are related with it, because something we have to think about, and we have to halt this global warming for our future generation. As you know, all know, the global temperature is rising, although you may say that the rise in temperature is hardly by 1 degree centigrade, 0.85 degrees centigrade, in last 150 years. But even this little temperature change of 1 degree, around 1 degree, will make a lot of impact on the climate as well as on the environment. And what you see today, these types of the changes which are taking place all over the world, the various floods, various hurricanes, and various other issues, they are because of this the emissions which are taking place all over the world. Although a lot of efforts is being done to minimize these changes, but still we have not been able to do much. So we have to think in this direction and see what best can be done to do the mitigation about these gases and how to live with all those changes which have taken place. The major issue is the how to reduce the emissions in the environment and stabilizing the levels of the heat trapping greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, because unless we focus on this issue, perhaps in future we will have much greater problems. And this responding to climate change involves two possible approaches. One is how to reduce the emissions, and secondly, the stabilizing the levels of heat trapping greenhouse gases. And secondly, we have to adapt ourselves to this climate change, because this is bound to be there. But what best we can do is how we are more careful, as the previous speaker has said, that how by sharing the vehicles, how by using many little things, we can have much effect on we can minimize the effect of this climate change. So with these words, I thank Dr. Ramboj once again for giving me this opportunity. Because I got several phone calls from him, so I had to be there, because he has been very closely associated with me for last so many years. So I cannot say no to him. But yeah, I have another meeting just now after 5 or 10 minutes. So I was very brief, but I must say that this is a very important and critical issue, and everybody and collectively, unless we make a joint effort to minimize these effects, this will not have any impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Verma. In fact, we will come back to you, I think, to work closely on climate literacy and education things with your university and also the largest university networks in the country and the region. And now we are at almost at the close of the panel discussion. We have, in fact, we missed Professor G.D. Sharma, and we would request him to make his concluding remarks, in fact, in whatever very little time. So quick remarks, Professor G.D. Sharma, from your side.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramboj. Because of interruption due to internet, I could not complete, but lot of things have been shared by our previous speakers. I will not repeat the same. I would like to just mention few things where our youths and educational institutions can make significant contributions in bringing, or at least controlling, or bringing the low speed of the climate change. As our governments at international levels and all, they are part of the decisions taken by different international fora. Indian government also has taken a number of measures recently in some of the schemes like Swachh Bharat Scheme Mission, National Food Security Mission, Mission for Integrated Development of Horticulture, National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, then the Krishi Vikas Yojana to promote organic farming, National Agroforestry Policy, National Water Mission, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment guarantee scheme, etc. So there are number of government policies, but what our youths could do to take these government policies, bring awareness to the local people, where universities and colleges can adopt at least 5 villages near to their location, bring this awareness about these schemes so that they will benefit them and will be helpful in reducing carbon emission. The another thing is the use of technology, transforming technology, particularly in education. What we have seen when during this corona last year, the lockdown was there, lot of pressure on the vehicle and other things. So it brought down the pollution level. So in universities and colleges, it is advisable that we put our bicycle or these solar vehicles or battery operated vehicles and do not allow these cars and other things. So we have taken this initiative in our university. Once people reach the university at near gate, they are allowed to use the battery operated cars. And the university has implemented to make use of the electricity, only solar electricity. Solar pans are there on this roadside and other whatever is there. So this, our South Asia is getting very good sunlight. So this could be used to reduce the carbon emission. But what is more required is that to bring universities and colleges under this course structure where climate change is also made compulsory, like Supreme Court in India has made compulsory environment studies at undergraduate level. So it is now advisable that climate change should also be an important and compulsory part should be there. The other things that we have a good example of a country, Bhutan, where carbon emission is not neutral, even minus, as you have rightly said. We should share the knowledge among our South Asian countries, especially through the exchange of the students, and also having convention and also having workshop and taking joint research project on sharing those practices which are helpful in tropical climate, in subtropical climate, in Himalayan climate. So under these different climate conditions, how carbon can be emission can be lowered by using a number of technologies which are available, which may not be costly. So housing, the alternative to agricultural practices, because it has been seen that if we have the traditional agriculture of rice cultivation, this causes again more this carbon emission more compared to other agricultural practices. So those practices also needs to be changed as per the new knowledge is available, new researches are available. So sharing of research and also the joint research projects to be supported by international agencies, by the intergovernment agencies, as well as in South Asia, those local cultures particularly which are helpful, and also they are the part of our social culture which reduces the carbon emission can be encouraged to be taken. So to involve the people, the Gram Panchayat could be the best place where our youth can go and can make the road show, bring awareness how the plantation can bring down the more better health to them, because the COVID-19 can be given one of the example that when the pollution was less in some of those countries, the disease of COVID-19 was also less. But those countries where the pollution level was high, the disease has spread comparatively more, and the lifestyle, etc., can also become the part of our educational system. So the education can play an important role, and the carrier of these policies using the social media, etc., can be through our youth, where every year we are getting new the students, and through this education, one more thing is there, that most of these countries are facing the employment problem. But it has been worked out that if we create the new technology for lowering the pollution, air pollution, etc., it can create more jobs. So creation of more jobs related to bringing down the climate change using different technology, particularly the artificial kind of the application of computer-oriented IoT, etc., artificial intelligence. These are the technologies which will bring down the carbon emission. So I feel that South Asia can become a torch bearer in bringing the universities' knowledge together, in bringing the youths together through sharing not only the knowledge, but also bringing exchanges between the universities and colleges, so that the government support can also be made available. So these were some of my thoughts I thought I will share. And those technology innovation and also resilience of the communities, the sustainability of communities through the plantation, particularly in Northeast, as you are aware, that sacred groves and sacred forests have been created, and they are the best model in bringing the carbon emission and lowering the carbon emission. So with these few words, I thank you as well as the whole team of the organization to give me this opportunity. I'm again sorry for this having the interruption because of the technology, the internet connectivity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Sharma. I think, yes, we are into the era of disruption and interruptions. And yes, we are trying to adapt to new ways. And I think you rightly mentioned about the way universities could lead, and particularly in South Asia, you yourself has introduced battery-operated buses within the campus. And I think that's a good example. And we will come back to you with how to take forward this whole climate literacy issue in higher education institutions in the country and South Asia. Thank you so much again. We are really running out of time. We have already exceeded 11 minutes. But if there are some pressing questions, my team, I think they have compiled a few. I think not more than 4 or 5. So this is the question: legal issues related to problem of climate change and the stand of India, by Rutuja Patel. Any one of the panelists or experts could address this issue. There are, of course, in India, I would say that we have Environment Protection Act and many acts, Water Act, Air Act, but specific to climate change, we do not have any legislation. These could be dealt within the ambit of largely Environment Protection Act. Question 2 is sustainable development is now a new term, but in present scenario, it becomes more important. Can some specific green jobs be mentioned? Any one of our learned panelists?
Actually, in Sri Lanka, we have sustainability officers, sustainability managers, environmental managers, environmental management officers, like that. So there are certain job opportunities in this area.
Great. I think there are many, in fact, these jobs are available, green jobs so-called, and you can search the net. In fact, ILO has compiled all the list of the green jobs available. So next, due to the prevailing COVID pandemic, movement is restricted and classes are online. What activities can be undertaken by the students in the primary sections to work towards betterment of environment at their level? Any of the panelists who can?
Sir,
Yeah,
at
please.
this time, sorry. Yeah. In this time
Yeah,
of
please go ahead.
pandemic, in the time of this pandemic, definitely the schools are having a lot of issues, especially at the primary level, because children are at home. So the best thing which can be done at present is that we can give those children projects which can be done at home, because half of the problem, problem is not the school. The problem is generally how we live our lives for climate change. So small projects about children, that how they can segregate waste at their home, how can they make their energy audit of their home, how much energy are they consuming every month. These are the projects probably which can be given to various as per the level of the child we are giving the project. And these activities which they can do in the safety of their home can build their understanding of climate change.
I think very good, very nice. So next question, Annie, I think we should take one more. How can we encourage universities and their students to have more research on climate related issues and solutions, and how we can further press our policymakers to take stronger actions? Yes, we are many people from the universities who can take this question.
Should I answer this question?
Yeah, please.
Because this is a question which is very important. The universities are encouraging a number of students now to have problems related to climate change. They are working in this area. They are visiting the various areas, particularly the sections of the society, marginal sections of the society. They are making aware of them regarding the climate issues, and then some research problems they have taken up to solve these issues. And although this is too early, what will be the outcome, but they are aware about these issues, and they are making the public also. They are organizing certain nukkad natak also on a regular basis, and go to various places to make aware the people about these various issues which are related to climate change and also with the environment. And then all these efforts are being made, but more efforts are needed, as the universities, the students, they are more conscious now, I would say, about the environmental issues. They talk about these issues, they discuss about their issues, and they are involved in solving these issues also. Because the solar panels, the electrical engineering students and the other engineering students, they are involved in having solar panels all over the campus now. As Dr. Sharma said, the battery operated cars, they are also being encouraged now. So people are aware, the students are aware, they are using cycles also on the campus for the movement within the campus. So all these things are there, and some research issues they have also taken up. And I think that in near future, they will come up with certain solutions also.
Okay, thank you. I think this is very well answered. The question is, again remains the how to translate these into policy issues. A lot of research results, but there are many. I think we had a 2-hour session more, so we are exceeding now. And but it was so enlightening. We can go on and on. But I think let me just request finally the Director Asia of the Earth Day Network, Dr. Karuna Singh, my very good friend and very long time colleague. And she leads in Earth Day Network initiatives in the Asian continent. And in fact, she heads EDN's international office outside of the United States. Very, very important. and a lot of innovative programs. In fact, in many countries, she is spearheading. She keeps on sharing so many things to us, so enlightening, so knowledgeable. Karuna ji, kindly conclude and your just deliver your vote of thanks on behalf of every one of us.
Thank you, Ramji. It's been a fantastic morning, and thank you very much to you and to Aditya for heeding our call for action and joining us for this very, very important, webinar on climate literacy. So as you mentioned, I'm with Earth Day Network doing business as earthday.org, and climate literacy, we are pushing it at COP26. We have called upon nations, we've called upon large organizations, individuals to raise their voices so that climate literacy becomes a compulsory subject in most countries. And why are we doing that? We are doing that because, it is time to restore our Earth, which is our global theme for Earth Day 2021. And the way to restore our Earth, say by replenishing our aquifers, regrowing our forests, replenishing our soils, all depend on one thing, and that is redirecting human thought. So that redirecting human thought can only be built if there is an educated decision made. An educated decision made needs a basis of education, and not just a basis of textual education, but a basis where you are inspired to take the leadership to be climate literate so that you take action for the environment. So I would like to thank all the panelists as well. And in fact, please convey my thanks to Dr. Burman and Dr. Miatel for, helping us with this. And let me say that, President Joe Biden has heeded our call to action, and he is, as my president tells me, has agreed, as we all know, to bring about a meeting of 40 heads of states on Earth Day itself to discuss climate action and how it is going to affect our lives, what can we do for it, how can countries join together and lead this. And Dr. Chaudhary, Bangladesh is part of that. And we urge you to ask your governments to raise their voice for making climate literacy a compulsory subject, as Bhutan is. And we ask Dr. Norbu also to do that. If there's any way we can help you with that, we would be more than happy to do so. And Dr. Chetri, thank you so much for your very enlightening discussion and your call to action that we bring about intergovernmental agencies to create universities, link universities on climate education. Ramji, that is your thought as well. And if there's any way we can help, I know that Earth Day Network would be most delighted to be a part of that and to help in any way. We do have a very large team of educationists on our staff in Washington, DC. And there is a lot of material already that has been put together. So any help that is needed, we would be very happy to do that. Let me thank all my other panelists as well. Each one of your discussions was so very interesting, and we look forward to tomorrow, where where we have a focus on youth, and where one of our initiatives called My Future, My Voice has brought together a lot of youth at the moment from 68 countries across the globe to raise their voices and to show us what they can do for the earth. So thank you all very much, and it's been very